Admit all. Here we go.
Clapping.
Clap them in. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello,
Ladies and
hello.
gentlemen, boys and girls. Tyler, good to see you here. Bella's here. Aaron's here. Lots of good students here. Dave, a guest. Julia Coley's here. Thank you for being here. Alicia's here. Okay, as you know, being early is on time, being on time is late, and late is unforgivable, one of our famous film adages. So as you guys are rolling in, we're going to go ahead and kick off with a little trailer of a movie you may have heard of. So let's go ahead and start that now. If I can find it. And I found it. Here we go.
What are you doing here in Somerville anyway?
Honestly, my mom won't say it, but we're completely broke. And the only thing that's left in our name is this creepy old farmhouse our grandfather left us in the middle of nowhere. Why'd you bring me up here?
Entertainment value?
What is that?
I don't know.
Somehow, a town that isn't anywhere near a tectonic plate, that has no fault lines, no fracking, no loud music even, is shaking on a daily basis.
Under the dining table now! Hey, remember that one summer we died under a table?
I found this in my living room.
Whoa, killer replica.
A replica of what?
A ghost trap? There hasn't been a ghost sighting in 30 years. New York in the 80s, it's like The Walking Dead. Your dad never mentioned this to you?
It's just my mom. My grandfather died. My mom says we're just here to pick through the rubble of his life.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
Call it fate. Call it luck. Call it karma. I believe that everything happens for a reason.
Come on, darling.
It has a gunner seat?
Yes. Round of applause if you've seen this film already. Ladies and gentlemen, filmmakers, friends, students, and community members, thank you for joining us tonight digitally through Windward's Media Arts and Film Labs for a special presentation with Jason Reitman, a one-of-a-kind writer, director, and producer. To say the least, Jason's career and work is distinct and diverse. As a student of film and a filmmaker's entire life, he started at an age much younger than even some of you here today. While Jason has been recognized for his work as a true filmmaker trifecta, having directed, written, and produced many award-winning and celebrated films and television. Among some of these include Oscar Best Original Screenplay winner JUNO, a cultural classic, as I like to call it, starring Elliot Page, Michael Cera, Jennifer Garner, Jason Bateman, and so many more, to the revered Up in the Air with George Clooney, Anna Kendrick, and Vera Farmiga. Also Oscar nominated, this film, for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay. Now, before his breakout film, Thank You for Smoking, starring Aaron Eckhart, Jason had already accomplished a slew of recognized short films, including one of his very first called Operation, which premiered at the Sundance Film Festival. In addition, Jason has also served as producer of many of his own films and others that you know, such as Whiplash, the feature and short film, and Jennifer's Body, starring Megan Fox, which is another, I call that a cult classic, and our kids love it very much. It comes up quite a bit at school. Jason is also an executive producer on the Golden Globe nominated Best Comedy Show, Casual, on Hulu. Finally, you may have heard of this film that you just saw a trailer for, which is known to be one of the most beloved franchises of all time. And that film is Ghostbusters After Life, which we'll be talking about tonight as well. We have the pleasure of talking to Jason here about his work, his career, and his approaches to the craft and business of directing, writing, and producing. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, a digital round of applause, or physical round of applause, analog, digital, whatever you want to give.
Hey guys.
Jason, thank you for being here. Also, I'll be co-hosting tonight with Regina Hoffman, film and video production teacher as well. All right, good looking crowd. We have a lot of questions to field with you tonight, Jason, but I think this would be a great one to first tackle. What was the moment that you saw something or heard something or felt something related to cinema that you went, oh, I have to do this? Do you remember what that moment was?
You know, it's interesting. You know, I mean, I was in love with movies from the moment that I came in contact with them. I was on sets when I was a little kid. I was on the set of the original Ghostbusters when I was 6 years old, and I just thought it was magic. And all I ever wanted to do was go with my father to set and be a part of that life and be a part of, you know, what I really thought of was just a circus. And then by the time I was a teenager, all I wanted to do was spend time in movie theaters. And that was, I think, my daycare. That was my babysitting. It was, you know, like my parents would just like drop me off in a movie theater and I would just go from movie to movie. And I actually got scared of the idea of becoming a director myself. I was well aware of how people treated, you know, the children of filmmakers and famous people. And I thought, why would I want to go enter a profession in which people just going in would think that I was, you know, some talentless, spoiled brat who probably had an alcohol or drug problem. And like, why would I want to go in if that was just gonna be the presumption? And I went to college. I went pre-med. I thought I'll be a doctor. No one ever questions why, you know, why you want to become a doctor. And my father came to visit me at school and said, you know, what are you doing? And I told him that I was scared of being a filmmaker. And he said, well, being scared isn't a reason to do anything. And told me a story from when he was a kid, when he grew up in Toronto and wanted to open up a sandwich shop in Toronto. And my grandfather was a Holocaust survivor, came to my father and said, I'm sure, you know, these sandwiches would be very good. And if you know, made a lot of money, your mother and I would be very proud of you, but I don't think there's enough magic in it for you. You need to have something that has magic in it. And it was off of that advice that my father went to college and he was a music major. He started a film club and he became a filmmaker. And so he said to me, look, you have to find something that has magic in it for you. And it was off of that advice and literally that lunch where he told me that story that I decided to devote myself to trying to make movies, and first making short films and submitting them to film festivals and eventually feature films.
Wow. What a great opener. There's a lot that the kids can relate to, because we get that a lot with the kids talking about, well, my family's in the business and I don't want to come in with any shadows. And, you know, that's one part of the fear factor. Then you have other kids who are just like, I want to do that, but that's like being a general and a painter and an artist and a pop star. And yes, it is. Being a filmmaker requires so many skills. What an incredible story. And that came way later down the road, huh? So you guys never discussed actually diving into filmmaking earlier, prior to pre-med?
I mean, we had a conversation that began around movies very early on. And I say that's not dissimilar from the conversation that I have with my own daughter about movies. Every parent and child finds a way to communicate about the world. And some people do it through sports and some people do it through music. And for the Reitman family, it's always been movies. You know, movies are a way to talk about, you know, you watch a movie, you see characters who are kind of dealing with something that you're already dealing with, or, you know, you tell each other stories, or even just the kind of debate of what movies work and which movies don't. All of that is part of kind of the language of our, of our Hanukkah and Christmas dinners.
Incredible. And you mentioned this idea of finding magic in something. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have not seen Up in the Air, it's my favorite of Jason's kind of arsenal of great cinema. But there's this wonderful scene that George Clooney, basically they're letting someone go. It's J.K. Simmons. They're letting J.K. Simmons go, which is already hard enough because J.K. Simmons is going to fight back. He destroys Anna Kendrick. But there's this great speech that comes out of Jason's script about, you got to return to maybe losing your job is the way in which you return to the magic that you wanted prior to taking that job. Maybe it's the way you go back to your dream. It's just beautifully written. And we'll explore some of that film later. Excellent. So what was the transition going to SC? Because you studied creative writing. You didn't dive right into the film school. Is that right?
No, I mean, look, I grew up around movies and I grew up on film sets, and I felt like I had a pretty good understanding. A lot of the building blocks that I knew students would be studying when they got to USC, because I had just grown up on sets. I'd grown up in editing rooms. I'd grown up, spending my summers going from camera truck to the grip truck to the electric truck, learning about movies and a lot of dirty jokes, and then spending a lot of time in editing, where I learned that a movie really finds itself over the course of years. I think there's kind of a mistaken idea that a movie comes from a finished idea right from the get-go, and it's just not true. A movie starts out as a big block of marble, and you slowly shave it down and you find the subject within it. And you have to listen to the movie because the movie tells you who it is, and you have to listen when it does. And that time I spent in the editing room was really informative as far as understanding how you can really change what a movie is doing or saying, the way it's telling it, the pace of it, the tone of it, all in the third chapter of the process of making it, which is editing. So by the time I got to USC, I wanted to study storytelling in general. I was a creative writing major. T.C. Boyle, the author, was in the program there, and I got to study with him. But I started making short films my second year there.
Were you doing this on the side of the program?
Yeah, I mean, my advice to young people is always to diversify yourself as much as humanly possible. When I went to college, I was a English major. I was a creative writing major. I was writing at the newspaper. I was in the improv troupe. I was on the radio there. I was trying to have as much of a life as possible. As a young filmmaker, what you want to do is be working on your technique and simultaneously experiencing life. So by the time something has happened to you in life and you have a reason to actually tell stories, you've developed your technique enough along the way that you actually know how to tell the story.
It's beautifully put. And a lot of our kids are kind of going back between, should I go to film school? Should I go to film school? Everything you're talking about, just being passionate and exploring different things, all serves that if you become a storyteller later in life.
Yeah, I mean, had I not grown up around sets as much, and then film school would have been perfect for me. And God knows, it's really fun if you're obsessed with movies to suddenly be around a bunch of people who love movies as much as you do. And I found that I experienced that when I went to film festivals as well. The first time I went to Aspen or Sundance, or later on Telluride, you just find yourself, amongst hundreds of people who are obsessed, and all they want to do is talk movies all day, which, that's what I was looking for my entire childhood. But don't forget to live life, go out, make mistakes, have bad relationships, have bad jobs. I mean, these are the things that you will end up making movies about.
Terrific. So one of the things we hope to accomplish too tonight, Jason, is to talk about some of the craft of directing the camera, directing blocking, directing the actors for performance. One of the things you guys should know when you watch Jason's film, all of his films are revered for his performances. All the actors are known for the great characters they play and what they bring to the table. So let's take a look at one clip from JUNO, and Regina's going to explore a little bit further with you on directing actors with some questions. And for you in the crowd tonight, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you have a specific question for Jason, any of his work or any of these films or anything at all, send a message to Regina or I, and just ask your question. We'll see if we can field it. But Virginia, what do you think we take a look at a clip from Juno?
Yeah, I just wanted to set this up a little bit, Jason, and explain to you why I think this is going to be really nice for my students to go through with you, as well as we've invited Notre Dame High School here, as well as Orange County
cool.
School of the Arts. So they might also be doing this in their classes. But one of the things we're working on in film 3 and 4 is blocking. And I do find that high school students struggle a bit with blocking if there are more than 2 characters in a scene.
Totally.
And so we're going to look at a scene from Juno where I think you have 5 characters. It's where Juno and her dad are entering the living room of the couple that hopefully will adopt her unborn child. And we also have a lawyer in there. So I think there's 5 people. And we just want to look at the scene and then maybe tell us how you approached it in terms of the space. Why do we have 2 people in a shot versus 1 person in a shot? I don't know if this was on location or if you are on a set. I'm sure that has some bearing on where your camera can be, but basically the camera movements and the blocking and how you thought about it. So if we could look at the scene and then maybe Jason, you can take us through it.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go. Here's one of the non-huge profanity scenes that we could show from Juno, but students, you will love this film should you get permission to watch it.
Profanity. They're high school students.
It's true.
They know words we don't even know.
That's true. That's true. Here we go. Thumbs up if you can hear and see this.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. You must be Juno, Mr. McGuff. Hi, Vanessa. Lori.
It's Vanessa, right? Is that?
Thanks for having me and my irresponsible child over to your house.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you. Come on in. Can I take your coat or your hat?
Yeah, sure, thanks. A wicked pick in the penny saver, by the way. Super classy, not like those people with fake woods in the background. Honestly, who do they think they're fooling?
You found us in the penny saver?
Hi, Mark Loring. I'm the husband.
How you doing, Mac McGuff?
Nice to meet you. Hi.
This is Gerda Rouse, our attorney.
Good Rouse.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And this, of course, is Juno.
Like the city in Alaska.
No.
Hun, should we sit down and get to know one another?
Oh, I thought I'd get some drinks. What would anyone like? I have Pellegrino or vitamin water or orange juice with
I'll
folic
have a
acid.
Maker's Mark, please.
She's kidding. Junebug has a wonderful sense of humor, just one of her many genetic gifts.
There you have it. Let's bring us out. It was a great teaser there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. You should see that film. Okay.
So Jason, in terms of, I mean, kids are working on shot list, overheads, storyboards. What's your process when you have a scene like this and you just see it on the paper? How do you get it from that idea into the set? And are you working with actors that day, or you've already have it blocked out? Can you kind of take us through your process for a scene like that?
Yeah, sure. And my process really has developed over, since Juno, because it's been over a decade now. But I'll say a few things. Shooting a scene like that is strangely tricky. When you have 5 characters sitting around a table, they're going to be talking to each other. One thing you always want to be thinking about as a filmmaker is establishing landscape and giving the audience a sense of where they are in a room. And that's an easy thing to forget about, that, you may have walked into the location and you know where everything is. You walk in the door, there's a sofa to the right, there's a kitchen in front of you, but the audience doesn't know that yet. And you have to somehow kind of sneak that information in while you're staying entertaining, while you're keeping the pace up, while you're telling the story and introducing the characters or introducing them to each other. So for a scene like that, we get through the door and we wanted to get this sense that as you walk into the Loring house, there is, this stairwell. If you walk over to the left, there's going to be a little living room area. We wanted to establish, who the Lorings were, that they were wealthier than, Juno's family. And not only that, that they were kind of boring wealthy. They had spent their money on this kind of McMansion that doesn't have a lot of character. You could tell that, Jennifer Garner's character wants there to be kind of an appearance of a warm family, and she's trying so hard. But immediately when I establish kind of landscape and where they are, once they're sitting down, I always do overs. And when I say an over, for anyone who doesn't know, that means, you know, I'm shooting over someone's shoulder to someone else. And that does a lot for you. One thing, it lets you know where they are in relation to you. If you do a close-up of someone, you don't know where they are in the room. But if you're shooting over someone's shoulder to someone, you now that know, okay, these two people are sitting across from each other. And by feeling a little bit of their shoulder in the corner of the frame, by shooting literally over it, one, you create a nice little piece of foreground because you have a little piece of shoulder, you know, in the bottom corner, but also you get these tight eye lines where when that character now speaks to the person whose shoulder you are over, you are looking right in their eyes and you're getting what they feel. Obviously, you know, the further you move a camera around, like if I'm looking like this, if I suddenly move like this, you're starting to miss a lot of the information that's in my eyes as I talk. So I try to keep my eye lines tighter like this. So when you look, you can kind of see, you know, what I'm feeling by how I'm reacting. On a shooting day like that, I try to shoot more than one camera at once, but if you can't, that's fine. And one of the tricky things with a 5-person scene is finding out which actors are good on their first take, which actors are good on their 10th take. You know, some actors come right out of the gate and their best take is the first one and it'll never be as good. Other actors, their first take sucks and they need to warm up. And so you try to learn about your actors, who's better quick and who's better later. So when you start shooting this scene, you start on the people who you know are going to give their best work right at the top of the day, and then you could always move on to the people who develop over time. You also want to move on to the people who would kind of develop the scene dialogue-wise. There's some actors who are going to literally do exactly what's on the page and it's never going to change, where there's other actors who, like Jason Reitman, is going to start riffing on an idea, and every time he does the line, it'll be a little bit different and a little bit funnier. And so you want to make sure that you wait on him, let him go, let him be the person whose shoulder you are over. So by the time you get to him, he's developed his lines and he knows his moments, and you don't miss his magic. Now in shooting, one thing I've started to do, and I didn't do this on JUNO, but I've started to do this since then, is I'll go to a location and I will bring stand-ins and I'll bring my still camera, and I'll do this a month in advance of the shoot. And I'll have them act this scene out, and I'll start shooting photos of what I think the angles of the scene are going to be. This is a nice low pressure way to work on what the scene is going to look like when there isn't a crew there, where the pressure of time isn't there. You're not trying to nail the actual scene with the actors yet. And as a result, you get these photos and you can kind of assemble them. And by looking at the photos, you could start to see, all right, this is what the scene might look like eventually when I shoot it on film with the actors and the whole bit. And I developed this technique enough that now I take photos of the entire movie before actually shooting the scene. And every key on the movie, all the top people working on the film get a booklet this thick, and it's the whole movie. You could flip through and it's like looking at the movie.
Wow, that's amazing. Can I ask you, were you guys on location for that, or did you move to a set?
Yeah, we sure were. You know, Ghostbusters is my 9th movie, and it is the first time I've shot on a set. I've spent my entire career always shooting on real locations because I just find them more interesting. I find them more inspiring, and they create the kind of restraints that force you into angles that you otherwise might not shoot. I find that on a soundstage, anything is possible, and with anything possible, you don't actually create choices. What creates choices is limitation. So we're always frustrated with limitations at first, but I think as filmmakers, it actually helps us in the end.
Mm-hmm. So those pictures almost become your storyboards for you.
I can't draw. I'm always envious of the people who can draw, but I've never been able to draw. And as a result, I started using a camera, and it made me more familiar with lensing, frankly, because the more I used my still camera and the lenses, I was able to dial in exactly how I wanted to shoot something.
Okay. And Drew, I think we have a question that's maybe has something to do with JUNO a bit. Is this from Maggie? Did you want to ask this?
It might be from Maggie. Let me double check my notes here. Let's see. Sage advice, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. A lot of great prep work there just discussed by Jason. This could be from Maggie, but just in case I make a mistake, I'll just go ahead and share it anyways. So I mentioned that performance is huge in all of Jason's film. It's always, everyone loves the performances. What's, according to Maggie here, what are some of the tips and strategies for getting best performances of your actors?
This is a great question. And of course, sorry, as I was doing this, I was trying to find some photo boards that I could actually share with you guys.
Oh, cool.
So I may be able to find something. This one is pretty good. Okay, if we get a second, I'll actually, I'll show these. So for performance, you got to remember the most important thing is this. Your job is not to make the actors funny. Your job is not to make the actors more dramatic. Your really only job on a set as a director is to protect honesty. Your barometer for comedy will never be as good as your barometer for truth. So as you're watching a scene, ask yourself, do you believe this? If you don't, why don't you? Is it because of the movement? Is it because the way the actor's entering the scene? Is it because their first line of dialogue sounds too much like dialogue? Maybe you have to cut the line. Maybe you have to switch the line so it sounds like something more real. Maybe it's the gesture they're doing it. Maybe it's because the way they leave the scene. If you keep asking yourself constantly, do I believe this? You'll become a better director. And your direction to the actors should be based on how to get them more real. Wow. And now that could be pure manipulation. In fact, it probably will be. You can't often just say, well, do this. So you have to learn what your actors react to. Sometimes an actor is too much in their head. They're thinking too much about a line of dialogue. Let's say the third line of the scene, you could tell they're thinking about it so much that they're getting distracted. So then give them tons of notes about the second line of the scene. If you give them tons of notes about the second line of the scene, now all they're thinking about is the second line. By the time they get to the third line, they're so relaxed and they're thrilled to have the second line done that they don't even think about it and they say it naturally. There's all kinds of little tricks that you will develop, and it has to do with just kind of being a psychologist. You have to learn who the actors are as people, and find that, you know, some people need a lot, some people need barely anything, some people you need to tell them what to do, some people you need to tell them to do the exact opposite, and that's how you'll get there. Some people need line reading, some people need psychology. Often the best thing is just, why is someone saying something? Why are they doing something?
Seeking the truth in everything. Incredible advice there. Excellent. That was from Bella, by the way. Bella, thank you for messaging me. Bella's in film production with a lot of our film gang here. Got some other questions rolling in. Well, why don't we, let's, Regina, if you're good, let's switch gears and get up in the air. This is, you know, this going from Juno as an indie feature, some would say it's really just the style, to tackling a bigger picture. We have a lot of questions and thoughts about that one. And to get us into it, let's show perhaps one of the beloved opening scenes here, which seems to be satisfying for anyone that watches this movie. So let's take a look. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you also might notice this person's face, this actor, right when I play this clip. Hold on, here we go. Okay.
I'll never see Steve again. To know me is to fly with me. This is where I live. When I run my card, the system automatically prompts the desk clerk to greet me with this exact statement.
Pleasure to see you again, Mr. Bingham.
It's these kinds of systemized friendly touches that keep my world in orbit. All the things you probably hate about traveling, the recycled air, the artificial lighting, the digital juice dispensers, the cheap sushi, are warm reminders that I'm home.
There's something about that sequence that's just so satisfying and cinematic, and the pacing. And next thing you know, the movie's they're at the end. I'm like, whoa, my gosh. And there's a bunch of different styles. Well, not necessarily different styles, but different approaches to storytelling that you guys will see in Up in the Air. I'd like to share one more clip, but is there anything you'd like to share about that particular sequence, Jason? Like, did you design it? Did you think it through, or how did you approach it?
Yeah, I designed that scene within an inch of its life. I'm a huge fan of air travel, and that was a love letter to air travel and a movie about a few different things. And it was a very complicated scene to shoot because we shot it in the real TSA. You know, usually when they shoot it in an airport, they'll shoot at a convention center and they'll set up a fake, security detail. But we wanted to shoot the real thing, and then we were very lucky in that the TSA let us shoot actually in the real TSA section of the St. Louis International Airport. And they said, all right, we close from midnight to 4. You got 4 hours to get whatever you can. And so we set up 2 cameras on 2 dollies on 2 parallel sets of metal detectors. And we had a list of, I don't know how many shots, 40 shots. Yeah. And we split the shots up amongst the 2 cameras, and we basically detailed the schedule out in which every shot could be done in 15 minutes. And basically George and I would go to one camera, and it'd be, he's taking his watch off. And then I would tell the camera, all right, you're gonna set up for this, move the camera, set the lens. And as they lit for that, I'd walk over to the other camera. They were already there waiting for belt coming out, and we'd shoot belt coming out. And then I'd say, all right, move the camera down 3 inches and let's do the next thing. Next thing's gonna be the wallet. Set up the lens, set up the camera. They start lighting that, walk back to the other camera. It's been 15 minutes. They're now ready to go. Okay, off comes the watch. And we just went through security, going like this, one camera after the other, until we went through the metal detector and to the other side.
Like a well-oiled machine. And with George Clooney the whole time.
George did every single thing. George loves filmmaking, loves the process of filmmaking. And even if it was just the tip of his thumb, he wanted it to be him.
Wow.
So that was one of the hardest nights of shooting of my life. It was just exhausting. We went right to 4 a.m. and they opened up the airport. And it was just really joyful shooting, joyful editing. By the way, and here's the thing. We knew every shot in that sequence. We shot it so specifically. It still took months to edit, because that's one of those kinds of sequences where you're just framing things a little left or a little right, to lose 2 frames, bring this up, swap those shots, and then working with my composer on the music, that whole, drum.
Rolf Kent, is that correct?
Yeah, Rolf Kent, and working on, Rolf, who is like an expert in actually foreign instruments and foreign percussion, and did all kinds of interesting moves, and then we would recut it to his music again. But I'm thrilled you picked that. That's one of my favorite clips.
Yeah. And did you, so not doing storyboards, which I'm the same way. If I try to do a stick figures, it's horrible. I love taking photos as well. Did you plan, okay, overhead, bag coming into frame, zip. What was the degree of detail?
That one actually had really bad storyboards by me, but probably storyboards where I was the only one who could read them. Okay. I remember early on doing a commercial where I drew a storyboard, and I remember someone looking at the storyboards and going, "There's a duck in this?" And I was like, "No, that's the child." I mean, I literally just cannot draw.
Amazing. But you had actually all the frames and the movements and the trucking that had all been planned out, because it sounds like you had to execute with 2 cameras.
Yeah, my cinematographer and I have known each other forever. In fact, it's interesting because I know there's probably people who are 15 years old on this Zoom right now, and 15 years old is how old Eric and I, my cinematographer, were when we met each other.
Wow.
I was at Harvard Westlake, he was at Viewpoint, and we met on a friend's short film, and we've known each other ever since. And, I think the important lesson is if you're going to be on set, you want to be around talented people, but more than anything, you want to be around people you trust and you love. Because on a bad day, I don't care how good your cinematographer is, nothing's going to work if you don't care about each other. The people you want to be there when everything goes wrong, and things will go wrong, are the people you trust, the people you have a common language with, the people you love. So this is the time, right now in college, the people that you're making these short films with, the people that you're shooting with, you're going to develop your skills together, and nothing will be more rewarding than 20 years down the line, the way Eric and I are now, Actually, it's more than 20 years. Getting to make big movies and watching each other continue to grow and learn, that's the thrill. It's not finally getting to work with that DP you always dreamed of. It's getting to make the movie with the DP that you grew up with. And our relationship is that I frame, he lights. That's kind of it. Like from early on, I've never pretended to understand lighting, and he's always respected my framing choices. So with a sequence like that, I knew this is the exact frames, I knew my lensing, and we'll talk about it, but I know where I want to go. And then with lighting, it's like black magic. And I just say, I'd love it if it felt like this, and then he lights it.
Wow. Lots of wonderful advice, ladies and gentlemen. And what's beautiful about filmmakers and the experience of making a film is that when you get through the trenches, you learn how much your relationships matter. And there's not just magic made in the process of making a movie, but the relationships that you make end up being magic as well. Incredible thoughts there. Let's go back into performance. There's one more clip from Up in the Air that might be fun to explore. And we could talk a little bit about performance, and then we'll switch gears to Regina and more of directing the camera and technical directing with Ghostbusters. So here's another clip.
I mean, what is the point?
The point?
Yeah, I mean, what am I starting here?
Jim, it's marriage. It's one of the most beautiful things on earth. It's what people aspire to.
Well, you never got married.
That's true.
You never even tried.
Well, it's hard to define try.
I don't know. You seem happier than all my married friends.
Look, Jim, I'm not gonna lie to you. Marriage can be a pain in the ass. And you're kind of right. This all is just stuff that leads to your eventual demise.
Yes.
And we're all on running clocks, and they can't be slowed down or paused, and, you know, we all end up in the same place. There's no point.
There is no point. That's what I'm saying.
You know, I'm not normally the guy you would talk to about stuff like this. If you think about it, your favorite memories, the most important moments in your life, were you alone?
No, I guess not.
You come to think of it, last night, the night before your wedding, when all this shit is swirling around in your head, weren't you guys sleeping in separate bedrooms?
Yeah, Julie went back to the apartment. I was just by myself in the honeymoon suite.
Kind of lonely, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty lonely.
Life's better with company. Everybody needs a co-pilot.
That was a nice touch.
Thanks.
This is, I mean, there's so many great moments and warmth and the screenplays that Jason also writes. Jason, for a small scene like this, how much did you work with performance? And was it about just a little touch here and there, or did the actors come with it? Or did you massage this scene at all? Because this is a big transformational scene later in your movie.
So yeah, it's interesting because both of these actors are brilliant at being funny, and it's wonderful when you take comedic actors and you just kind of get to watch them do lovely little dramatic scenes like this. The one behind the scenes note I'll say about this is originally in the script when Clooney finds him, he's reading The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein, but the Shel Silverstein estate wouldn't let us have it. And that's why we wound up with Velveteen Rabbit. And honestly, it's funny because I think you tend to overthink scenes like this as a younger filmmaker. These penultimate dramatic moments where the story breaks. But the truth is, the hard work is everything leading up. If you do all the acting and filmmaking right leading up to a scene like this, at that point, the dialogue does all the heavy lifting. The trickier scenes actually come earlier. In a scene like this, I think the trick is honestly what I said earlier, keep it honest. Everything's pretty low key in that scene. You know, you watch them, they're quiet, they're keeping their pace up, they're not getting too dramatic, they're not crying. We're finding moments to make it funny. Moments that make it funny always think things feel real. You know, that little bit when he goes, "That's a nice touch, thanks." I think they may even kind of have come up with that on set. That's the kind of moment that makes the whole scene feel better because it has that, it just breaks the, you know, the energy for a moment.
I think you planted that line at the bar. Clooney says to
oh yeah, never mind. That was in the script. Never mind.
So great script writing. It pays off.
Yeah. I actually haven't watched Up in the Air in a long time. But what I remember from that day is, you know, it leads to a whole wedding sequence that I'm really proud of. And wedding sequences are tough. You got tons of people, big location. And there's been a million wedding scenes, which makes it even harder. Because when you're trying to think of a scene, you're like, how do I do this scene a new way? How do you do a wedding scene a new way when there's been 1,000 wedding scenes in movies and some of the most important scenes of all time are wedding scenes? You think about The Godfather, you know, how important that wedding scene was, or you think about The Deer Hunter. And so eventually, well, how do I do this my way? And my way became, let's host a real wedding. So we hired a wedding planner, we hired a real priest, we hired a wedding band, we hired a wedding photographer, and we threw a wedding. And we told all the extras, okay, you're guests at a real wedding. We're gonna do the whole thing from start to finish. We did the whole ceremony in one take. Those two actors are married now because they got married by a real priest in a real church. They said all the words.
Must have been a really good scene for them.
Yeah, and then we did the party.
Wow.
And we did the real party, and we had a real band playing, and they danced, and they moved around, and we had one production assistant hiding in a wedding dress with in a gown with an earpiece, and if someone was in the way of the camera, she could go over and like push them out of the way. But otherwise, all the actors knew what they were doing there. Everyone knew what the emotion was, and it was a really fun way to shoot. In fact, we hired the camera people they knew normally shot the television show The Office because they were so good at filming things in real time.
Incredible. We're getting a lot of great questions, by the way, and thank everyone for their comments sending to me and Regina. Since we're getting closer to the end, I'm going to just jump around and then we'll switch gears to back to Ghostbusters. This one comes from a young legendary student who goes by the name of Josie. What is it like?
I'm in trouble now.
She picked a good one too. What is it like balancing between a big picture director and an indie film director? Maybe you could talk about the shift from, you know, where you started to where you're at, or is there something that you could speak to in both of those realms?
I thought Josie was going to ask a question about how do you balance being a filmmaker and such a bad father? It's a great question, Josie. I would say storytelling is storytelling. That's what I learned a lot on Ghostbusters. What I learned was that at the end of the day, you arrive on set, you have a plan, you have a group of actors, and they're going to portray a moment. And that moment is usually about wanting something, wanting to get somewhere, needing to get some sort of information from one character out of another. Two people arrive, they have a disagreement, they move on. And whether that's in the midst of a ghost busting fight, or whether that's a conversation about, you know, teen pregnancy, or whether that's, you know, a man being a tobacco lobbyist, or another guy firing from someone for a living, or a woman trying to end someone's marriage. These are all subjects of my movies. At the end of the day, you shoot them kind of the same way as far as the directing goes. You can think of different ways to use the camera to tell the story differently. And certainly every scene can be shot a billion different ways, and the tone can always be different. But what you learn as a storyteller is that early on, as you're directing, you want to copy everyone you like. If you looked at my early short films, you would go, I get it. You loved Quentin Tarantino. I understand. We all do that. We do that whether we're playing guitar, whether we're writing poetry. We emulate the people we like. And as you're doing that, there's a voice in the back of your head that is going, say it like this. And you ignore that voice at first because you're embarrassed of that voice. And you're like, no, 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 it's supposed to sound like Quentin. But that little voice in the back of your head, that's your voice. And eventually, in the same way that as you grow up, you have to learn to look in the mirror and say, okay, I love you no matter who you look like or whatever. You have to look at your voice that way and learn to look at your own voice and go, I love you, voice. And I'm going to tell stories that way. And once you learn to accept your voice, whether you're showing up to do a ghost busting scene or a very small, intimate conversation, it's the same job.
Amazing. Amazing. This is music to my ears, by the way, Jason, because you're echoing so many wonderful things and expressing it in such beautiful ways that I can go tomorrow to all of our classes and say, see, we told you, you heard everything we're talking about. Movies make us better people, period. Better storytellers, better communicators, etc. Incredible. Okay, we get a lot of great questions coming in. Let's switch gears back to Ghostbusters and take a look at a clip. And Regina's gonna walk us through this one. But we have a clip that has a lot of technical elements that is challenging for a director or a student to comprehend. So Regina, do you want to say anything before we look at this clip?
Yeah, Jason, this clip is with actor Paul Rudd. He's in the Walmart and he's being chased around by some demons.
Yep.
And the reason why I wanted you to talk about this a little bit is because my students who are watching JUNO right now, they might watch certain scenes of JUNO and think, I might be able to shoot that. Like those two characters talking together. I could do that kind of thing. And then they see some new films that are out and they're trying to figure out how the heck do directors do that? How do you get the eye lines right? Who's helping you on the set so that when you get into post, everything works together? So we can watch the scene and maybe you can just kind of take us through that.
You got it.
Okay, thanks.
There we go. Another great still image opening this sequence. You guys might know this face. Here we go. Okay.
That was a fun night at Walmart. I remember that night, McKenna came to set, even though she wasn't in that scene, and Josie was there. And I said, we own this place all night. Stay up as late as you want, do whatever you want. And hours later, I remember seeing Josie and McKenna in unicorn onesies on tricycles, just biking through with Nerf guns firing at each other through the Walmart. It was amazing. So, with a sequence like that, obviously for some of the stuff, the Terror Dog was a puppeteered Terror Dog and was going to be there, and other stuff was a CG Terror Dog, and the Terror Dog was not going to be there. And so if the Terror Dog is going to hit things, you need to work with a special effects person who's going to do live practical effects on set in advance so that they can move things that the Terror Dog is going to hit. So if it's going to run into mannequins, you have to have someone who puts wires on mannequins and flings them out of the way at the moment it's supposed to hit. Or if it's going to hit a rack of clothes, the same thing. You got huge cables that pull these racks of clothes as they just got knocked by a Terror Dog. And that wall of glass that it runs through, that was all fake. Paul Rudd ran through the parking lot, and then we just there was a complete CG wall of glass that it broke. And the trick is really kind of just having a sense of where objects are going to appear and how fast they're going to move. And if you want, for a moment, I will share my screen.
All right.
Can I do that?
Yeah, you're a co-host.
Look at me. All right. And can you see this?
Yeah.
So this is a photo I took in the location and a drawing of a ghost that was put inside. And if I start going through, you'll start to see the scene in photo boards that I shot with stand-ins. Obviously, that's not McKenna Grace and Logan Kim. But these are photos that I took knowing what the scene would be. And she's even like pretending to hold a proton pack. I think we even had a proton pack with us that day. And we're drawing in all the things that are going to happen. But by clicking through these photos, you almost get a sense of what's going to happen in this scene.
Totally.
So this technique of photos really helped me learn how to shoot a sequence like that. Because I shot more than I needed in photos, and then I went back and I started clicking through it and going, okay, does the scene make sense when I click through like this? I got one more of those.
And related to that, I did have a question that came in about how you work with actors to get them to act with these things that aren't really there. Is there any tips that you would give the students, or anything that helps you with that?
I think it's good to have, you know, some sort of facsimile, a piece of cardboard, whatever, that can show them, all right, this is how big it is. This is where it is. There's an eye line. Here's something to look at. And you got to amp them up. You got to know that the first time they're not going to go big enough. They're not going to react big enough. You got to really embarrass yourself as the director as you direct them and go, oh my God, look at it, it's over there. Like, you have to like come that big so that your energy brings their energy up. And it feels silly at first. Like, it feels silly just doing that right now on a Zoom call in front of a bunch of you. But you got to learn to kind of let that go. And go, as a director, you embarrass yourself to give your actors the confidence to be themselves and do kind of silly things on set and in front of other people. And you got to have that energy. As a director, you have to be someone with endless energy. I got one more. If you want, if you want, I could share one more of these.
Yeah, definitely.
That I think really works well. That can really help explain how the photo boards work.
So almost any sequence related to action or technical or computer generated monsters, you love to approach it with taking stills with stand-ins.
I do the entire movie, even if it's just dialogue scenes. So can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
All right. So this is the scene of, this is the first time they fire up the proton pack. So this is Podcast putting bottles out. He comes walking back, and this is exactly how the scene is cut together in the movie. And now we're following him back to her. He helps her get the proton pack on. He observes as she pulls it out. She looks over at the bottles. He tries to figure out where the switch is. Hits the switch. The thing fires up. She plants her feet. He puts his goggles on. She steadies herself. Big wide shot again to reveal what she's about to shoot. She firms her foot. She flips on the proton pack. We see a stern look in her face. She knows what she's going to do. He's excited too, even closer, and she fires. So
incredible.
So
you come to set, like that. You come to set with a printout of all these in each scene. And that's how that's basically like your shot list. So you'll take
thousands of photos. It's the entire movie is done like this. And by doing that, everyone working on set knows we're going to look this way. We're going to look this way. It's going to be this lens. Then we're going to be this close. Wardrobe knows what they need to prepare. The production designer knows what they need to prepare. And lighting wise, they even know, okay, this is where the camera's going to be. So we're going to light it this way.
Incredible. Incredible. And how do you know when you're shooting out of order? Do you have like a one-liner under each photo saying what it's covering in the script? Or?
So I work with the first AD that I've worked with forever, and we come up with a schedule. Every Sunday night, we go to dinner and we come up with a schedule for the week. And we go through the photo boards and we come up with an order for the shoot. And that order usually has to deal with sunlight and where we want to be exactly at any given time. But on top of that, it has to do with how much energy are the actors going to have? And when do we want to bring background in? And when will someone's hair be ready in time to shoot? All these little things. When do you have to break people under 18 years old, for school and for lunch? All these little things factor into your schedule, but having the photo boards lets you know this is how much time we're going to need to get this shot, and we should do it at this time.
Incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 5 minutes left, and you've already heard so much great technical and theoretical and philosophical information about the craft and the business of directing. We haven't even scratched the surface really about screenwriting or producing. So we already got to tell you, Jason, we need part 2. The sequel. We need to make that happen.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about writing. Producing, I don't feel confident enough to be an expert in, but happy to talk about writing.
Excellent. Happy to hear. Let's see. I wonder in the last couple minutes that we have, we'll maybe try to tackle a question, see if we can throw in a bonus question. So let's see. Well, students always have a laundry list of what they think of what a producer does. But maybe you can talk to us about how you tackled producing the Whiplash short and the feature. And you've had a long relationship with Dabla Cody, who did JUNO, wrote the script for JUNO, which you directed, and some other pieces. But maybe we could just talk about Whiplash. How did you come on board the short and the feature?
I was working with a producer named Helen Estabrook, who's just a genius, and she had discovered Damien, and he had this script for Whiplash, and she loved it, and she was trying to figure out, what's the best way to get this thing financed. And we looked at my own career as far as making short films and how that led to me being able to make Thank You for Smoking. We thought, well, not everyone wants to finance a drumming movie, but maybe if they saw a short film about it, they would get it. And we really believed him as a director. So we found I think $20,000 to make the short film. Maybe it was, I can't remember how much it was, but it was a fair amount of money. I think it was actually raised by Nicholas Bertel, who is a brilliant composer. If you were a Succession fan, he wrote that theme to Succession, and I think won an Emmy for that. And I called J.K. Simmons, who I'd already done many movies with, and I said, "You got to do this. Come join us." And he joined us for the short film, and the short film ended up winning Sundance. And off of that win, we were able to get the feature financed, which I think we made for $3 million. And that went back and won Sundance again, and obviously went on to the Oscars and had an amazing run and launched the career of Damien Chazelle.
Incredible story. Which, ladies and gentlemen, that's also the director of La La Land and
First Man.
First Man. I was about to say Ad Astra. First Man with Ryan Gosling. Incredible. Okay, last 2 questions, and we'll have to say the rest for the sequel.
Okay.
One comes from Nathan Kaufman, who, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, for those of you that have not seen Ghostbusters, I've heard this from adults and from students and from filmmakers that it delivers in all the ways in which you love Ghostbusters. So those that love it, it's from both students and adults. And Regina can say this as well. She even has a toy with her. But if you love Ghostbusters, you're going to love the film. Nathan wants to ask, Nathan's in film production, how easy or difficult was it for you to get the original Ghostbuster actors into the new film?
Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson were both very much game. Bill Murray was a little trickier, but fortunately, Bill had already, made many movies with my father, and he had also made a movie with my writing partner, Gil Kennan. And as a result, he was more apt to read the script. And when he did, he really responded to it. And, it was a love letter to Harold Ramis, one of the originators of Ghostbusters, one of the original actors in Ghostbusters. And Bill loved Harold, and I think the idea of being able to do a movie that offered a proper goodbye to Harold really meant something to him.
Incredible. Okay, this is a double-edged sword. Jason, can you tell us, why does storytelling matter? And perhaps you could tell us why storytelling matters to you.
Sure, big question. It's a big question, and I'll do my best. I think storytelling matters because our entire sense of our existence is based on stories. Our entire thought about who we are is based on our memory, which are stories. They're based on our own perception of what is happening in front of us, which is a story. It is based on what we think will happen, which is a story. It's our way of sharing our past with our children, and it's our way of dreaming about the future. We pitch a story of who we might be. It's the way we communicate. It's the way we laugh. It's the way that we mourn people. I can't imagine a life that is not filled with all of us telling stories to each other constantly. You get home, you say, what happened to you? What'd you do today? What'd you learn? That's a story. You say, hey, I just learned a funny joke. That's a story. What are we if we're not constantly just telling stories to each other? That's just kind of it. And without them, I don't think life would be worth living.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you haven't heard me say it before, I told you so. So many wonderful things here, Jason, from the craft to your personal experience, to your personal stories about getting over fear and becoming the storyteller you wanted to be, to telling multiple stories with great collaborators, to your approaches with working with actors and finding the truth. There's so many wonderful things you shared here tonight, and we would love for you to come back.
It'd be my pleasure.
It was certainly our pleasure. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you're here, give us a physical, digital, or whatever you can to congratulate and to thank Jason for his incredible wisdom tonight. That's Roger.
That's very kind of you. Thanks for putting that on YouTube and Snap for just a few moments to listen to an old guy talk about movies. It was really a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Jason,
Thank you,
you're
Jason.
terrific. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nah, you're welcome. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Good to see you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Julia.
Thanks for coming.
Yep.